All right, in this video, we're going to take a look into our playbook, and we're going to start in the pass game with our 5 quick game concepts. And today we're going to look at the seam. The seam is set up to attack the outside linebacker, strong safety player, the edge defender in the pass game, in a one high coverage situation. So when they have one safety high in the middle of the field. Let's take a look over in our playbook and what that looks like. If you go to Huddle, we want to go to Play Tools, select Playbook. In the offensive page, you want to click on the installs. And our quick game concepts are going to be right here in our 70-71 pass protection, our 3-step pass. So click on that. The first play you're going to see is seam. We have 4 different sets of that. We have 2 that are out of 2x2 formations. Ram and Lion are 2x2 formations because they have 2 receivers on each side. This is our seam concept out of Ram. This is our seam concept out of Lion, the other 2x2 formation. And then we can also run it in 3x1 formations where we have 3 receivers on one side and then an isolated receiver on the back side. And in this case, we have Rip Tree, and this is our seam concept right here, and out of Liz Tree. So let's go over to the whiteboard and take a look at how we want to run this play. All right, so let's first look at seam out of our Ram formation. And this is the ideal situation in which we want to run seam. When they have a one high safety in the middle of the field, we're going to look to expose this area in rhythm. All right, so throwing in rhythm is the best way to attack a defense for explosive plays. And why we call this a rhythm concept over here is because we want the quarterback to be able to throw it off the last step of his drop. When the quarterback is in his 3-step drop, simultaneous to that, the defense is in their drop phase. And if the quarterback can throw the ball on rhythm, he's going to catch the defense on their heels or not ready to defend. So our quick game concepts look to exploit areas of the field quickly and in rhythm. So we're going to start by attacking these areas of the field with a rhythm combo out of these 2 receivers, which starts with the tight end in a seam release up the seam to exploit this bubble immediately and see if we can hit that first. Now, you see he has an outside release on this edge defender, and that's an important thing to do for a couple reasons. One, first of all, remember the intent of this defender, if he reads pass, is going to be to put a collision on this receiver and kind of slow him up. And we don't want him to be able to do that. The reason he wants to do that is because he doesn't want us to exploit this space quickly. So a seam release means the receiver is going to take an outside stem and then beat him up the seam to avoid collision. A couple of things that happen by taking an outside release is one, we want to keep this route away from this safety. If we get collision or forced inside, we kind of get fed to that safety. So we're going to take an outside release. And then that's going to give us a better look at what this edge defender is going to do. He could work outside to collide and then carry on into the flats in a cover 3. He might be taught to wall this route up inside and kind of hand it off to the safety. He could be in man and follow him up the seam, but that's what the quarterback is gonna determine in his rhythm steps, in his drop. He's really gonna focus on this guy right here and know that his bubbles he wants to hit are right here and under the hard deck moving on in. And that comes in from the Z receiver running likely a fin route, potentially a hitch, depending on what happens here. So this is what we call the seam concept. tight end up the seam, and the Z receiver occupying the underneath space with some nuance here. And that's why you see the ripple effect in the route and the break here. So if the tight end gets a good release up the seam and avoids collision, by the time that quarterback hits his final step in his rhythm drop, he's going to throw that ball and look to hit it right here. If he does get a collision, the quarterback's going to be off that seam route. And now we're looking for how to run this route in order to get open here. If this defender sits in the hook zone, the Z receiver is probably going to settle in early out of his break. So basically what's going to happen with the Z receiver here is if this edge defender screams out to the flats, the Z receiver is going to take his fin hard to the inside. If this edge defender kind of muddles up his look and sits in the hook zone area, looks for a collision, walls the route, the Z is probably going to try to drive the corner and then sit underneath and keep his space here. So that's how we're going to operate in the seam. We're either going to take the quick hit up the seam or get a little nuanced opening underneath the hard deck. So on the seam side of the play, we have our rhythm portion of the play. Our read portion of the progression occurs on the backside. And since we're going to ideally run this in a one high situation and the immediate stress we're going to put on these bubbles above the hard deck and below the hard deck, we're expecting the free safety to bring his attention over there. And what we have is a 2-on-2 situation in the backside where we feel real comfortable first exploiting that with vertical routes. Now, because the seam side is the rhythm portion, this being the read portion, we have a little bit of time that these receivers can kind of check out their situation, and they can also turn these into breaking routes. So how this will happen if we get this look like this and we have two defenders under the hard deck. So if the pre-snap alignment of these defenders have them not capping the vertical routes, then we'll gladly take those that run up the seam and run up the fade and take our chances back there in the read portion of this. If we get more of a dropped off look back there and a soft play out of the corner and they show that they're going to cap that deep vertical space and they're going to stay on top of that, well, then we have breaks built into the route here. So these receivers are going to focus on their coverage and decide how to run their route. If this whip is able to cap the vertical route, our receiver by 10 yards, if he hasn't broken that cushion of 4 yards, then in his mind, he's going to start to set up that break at 12. So actually, I'm sorry, at 8 yards, if he hasn't broken that cushion, gotten it down to under 3, then he's going to start thinking about setting up his break route. So he's going to leave a hard left step and start settling into this zone here. Along with that, the X receiver will be monitoring the same way. You know, if we get an under the hard deck corner, he's gonna look to beat him deep. If he's lining up at the hard deck or above the hard deck, a soft corner in a zone, the X receiver is gonna push vertically as fast as he can off the ball. And if at 10 yards he has not broken that cushion of 4 yards yet, he's going to start to thinking about setting up his comeback route, breaking to the outside. So this sets up a good read situation for the quarterback. He, in the steps of his drop, he's going to focus his attention over here, look to attack quickly, and see if he has a fallback over here. His read option, by the time he turns his attention over here, which should happen at about 2 seconds after the snap, by that time, the R and the X will have decided how they're going to run their route, if they're going to go vert or if they're going to break in. Again, we're likely to have a 2-on-2 situation back here, and that's when our running back comes into play in this concept. Now, his responsibility is going to be what we call a check release. The way we're going to run our pass protection is that these 5 linemen are going to be responsible for the 4 men up front, and likely the strong side backer. That leaves the tailback is he's going to be check releasing on the backside backer, in this case the Mike. So a check release means that he's going to step and check and see what's happening here. If this guy's on a stunt off the edge, or if he's crashing a gap, and we need running back support in the block, he can stay in and block. But if he takes a run reads pass and kind of drops into his hook zone, that running back is going to have a one-on-one to beat him on the outside with a shoot route. So in our check release, we really want to send the running back out there as much as we possibly can, even if he's bringing heat. We'd like to be in a situation where our running back can still get out there and our quarterback can make that connection quickly enough. But that's something we have to grow into and build trust with. So this is the concept for this is seam. We look to run it out of a one high safety look. We're looking to exploit these bubbles of space here. And this is our backside action to counteract and use a full field progression in our read. Now let's take a look at if we are going to run it in a 3-by-1 set. If we are in a situation against a team where we expect a 2-high look, seam is probably better run out of a 3-by-1 formation like Robo or Rip. And we're going to start, so the progression is going to change for the quarterback and how we run this play out of 3-by-1. The receivers are still going to be responsible for the same areas, but it's going to happen differently. So it's going to start with the R, our number 3 receiver on the right, with a cross route, getting to the same space, the area of the field that he did in the 2-by-2, but he's going to start from over here. So that's what's going to change the progression for the quarterback. So the rhythm route in this case is going to be the R cross. Now the R is aiming at the opposite hash about 22 yards down the field. So he's actually going to hit at about 18 yards in this look, so we should probably have it drawn a little higher. And the quarterback's first going to see how do the safeties react to that deep crossing route. Then our seam concept's going to come into play. We still have the tight end up the seam, and then we still have our Z running hitch to fin based on his situation. All right, now you see something going on here with the R route. So the R, his responsibility is going to be to sprint to the opposite hash at about 22 yards downfield. But remember that in a cover 2 or a 2 safety look, the first open space given to us is the middle deep hole. So if the R receiver in running his crossing route, once he gets past the linebackers and he feels like there's a lot of space developing, he might want to throttle that down and occupy that space for the quarterback. Also along with that, as the R begins his route with an explosive stem across the field, if this safety gets a deep drop and gets underneath it, the R also has the freedom to check down and kind of sit in that zone, just like he would when we were running it out of 2-by-2. So our seam concept now kind of goes over here, and what we've done is with this 3-by-1, we really kind of cut the field in half and kind of turned it to a 1 high safety structure for this play again here. So the Y is going to have that outside release up the seam, and we're going to expect that strong safety to get up underneath it. And then that leaves the Z with his fin route for us to take advantage of this guy here. So out of the 3-by-1 look, the quarterback is going to rhythm the cross, read the seam, rush the fin. Okay, that's going to be the progression here. Rhythm, read, rush. And this is different than the 2-by-2. Remember, in the 2-by-2, we had a rhythm side, a read side, and then the rush check release. And these are the kind of things we got to get good at and understanding why our progressions change. And this is a philosophy we're going to use when we run unbalanced formations like 3-by-1 receiver sets. There's a situation that we're going to teach called 1-cap or 2-cap when we're in 3-by-1s. And what that means is imagine a line going from the center extending on through the goalpost. In unbalanced formations like this, where we have 3 receivers to one side and 1 to the other, the quarterback is going to make a pre-snap decision based on 1-cap or 2-cap. And that depends on where this safety is in relation to that center line. So the center line drawn in and the safety's over here. That's called a 2-cap situation because we have 2 deep defenders over an isolated receiver. And if there's a 2-cap, quarterback is going to decide to play the 3-man side. But if we come out in an unbalanced formation and they're 1-cap, a 1-cap look would be if that backside safety was to the right of the center line to any degree whatsoever. That would be considered a 1-cap look because to the left of the center line, there's only 1 deep defender over here. And if that's the case, we want the quarterback to choose to play that one-on-one. So 2-cap in an unbalanced formation, if we have a 2-cap look, play the strong side. If we have a 1-cap look, play the isolation. And that's not just as easy as 1 high. I mean, they can give us a 1-cap in a 2 high structure. They could have a high safety, a rolled safety, and an edge defender down. And that's going to be a 1-cap look for the quarterback, and we want to play with this isolated look. The secondary progression we have when it's 3-by-1 involves the backside receiver. And just like out of 2-by-2, he's going to run a read fade where he's going to try to burst beyond the corner. And if the corner is pre-snap kind of caps the fade, then the X is going to look to set up his check down. His comeback. And then the last portion of that, we also have a check release here. Now, again, like I said, these in pass protection, our linemen are going to be responsible for their front 4 and the strong side backer expected to be in the box. And in this case, that's the Mike. So the running back in this situation would check release on this will. Now, if you see this structure, it seems pretty obvious that his responsibility is going to be the running back or to maybe create some chaos in a blitz. So we got a check release situation here where the tailback is going to eye up that Willie linebacker and then decide if he can hit the flat. Now, like I said before, ideally, we want to release that running back all the time and be good enough that even if that linebacker comes on a blitz, we can still break out into the flats and beat it. But like I said, in the 2-by-2 look, that's going to be something we're going to have to earn the right to be good at. So this is seam out of 2-by-2 and out of 3-by-1. And that's the first of our 5 quick game concepts we're going to look at, seam. It initially attacks the edge defender in a 1 high coverage. The thing about these 5 quick game concepts is they all kind of protect each other. So when we get into the next video and we see slant, that's a concept that we're more likely to apply into a 2 high coverage. Honestly, you can run all these concepts against any type of coverage, but we're looking for ideal situations where we can identify the best way to isolate a defender and attack him. And that's what we're looking to do with our quick game. On the next video, we'll get into slant and talk about that.